But I was wrong. I thought I understood loyalty. I thought I knew what family meant after 35 years of marriage, after raising 3 children together, after building a life that everyone in our community admired. The soft murmur of well-dressed guests, the clinking of champagne glasses, and the gentle hum of the string quartet filled the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel. It was our nonprofit's 20th annual gala, and everything looked perfect. But perfection, I would soon learn, was just another word for illusion. My name is Margaret, and until that Saturday evening in April, I believed I was living the life I had earned. At 62, I had spent 40 years in education, the last 15 as principal of Riverside High School before retiring 3 years ago. I didn't retire to sit still, though. I founded Hope Springs Community Foundation, a nonprofit helping underprivileged kids get college scholarships. It was my pride and joy. My husband Thomas and I had poured our retirement savings into getting it off the ground, or so I thought. That night, I wore my navy blue gown, the one Thomas had always said brought out my eyes. I stood near the auction tables, watching donors bid on the items we had collected. 300 people had shown up. 300 people who believed in what we were doing, what I was doing. My younger sister Jennifer stood beside me, looking elegant in her burgundy dress. She had been staying with us for the past 2 years after her supposedly messy divorce from Richard. I had welcomed her with open arms. After all, that's what family does, right? Thomas was across the room, chatting with the mayor and some board members. At 65, he still cut an impressive figure in his tuxedo. He had retired from his consulting business around the same time I left the school system. Together, we were supposed to be enjoying our golden years, giving back to the community, traveling when we could. He had volunteered to handle the foundation's finances since, as he always reminded me, he had a mind for numbers and I had a heart for people. How could a wife of 35 years not notice what was happening right under her nose? The auction was going well. We had already raised close to $200,000, nearly double our goal. I was mentally calculating how many additional scholarships we could fund when I saw Detective Morrison enter through the side door. He wasn't in a tuxedo. He was in his work suit, and his face was grim. My stomach dropped. He walked straight toward me, and the look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. "Mrs. Bradley, I need to speak with you privately," he said quietly, glancing at Jennifer. "You too, Miss Collins." Jennifer's face went pale. Actually pale. I remember thinking that was odd because Detective Morrison hadn't even said what this was about yet. How did she know to be worried? We followed him to a small conference room off the main ballroom. Thomas appeared from nowhere and joined us, his hand on my elbow in that protective gesture I had always found comforting. Until that moment, Detective Morrison closed the door and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a manila folder and placed it on the table in front of me. "Mrs. Bradley, I'm sorry to do this at your event, but we've been conducting an investigation into Hope Springs Community Foundation for the past 3 months. We've discovered significant financial irregularities." My hands went numb. "What kind of irregularities?" "Embezzlement, ma'am. Someone has been systematically diverting funds from the foundation's accounts into personal offshore accounts. The total amount is approximately $870,000 over the past 18 months. The room spun. $870,000. That was nearly everything we had raised since I started the foundation. "Who?" I whispered, though some part of me already knew. Some part of me had always known, hadn't it? All those times Thomas told me not to worry about the finances. All those statements he said he would handle. All those times Jennifer had expensive new jewelry and explained it away as gifts from her ex-husband's guilt money. Detective Morrison looked at Thomas, then at Jennifer. "The accounts are under 2 names, Thomas Bradley and Jennifer Collins." I turned to look at my husband, the man I had loved for over 3 decades, the father of my children. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Margaret, I can explain," he started. "Don't," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. It was cold, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Just don't." I turned to my sister. She was crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who got caught. "How long?" I asked. Neither of them answered. "How long have you been stealing from underprivileged children? How long have you been taking money meant for teenagers who needed a chance at a better life so you could do what? Buy expensive watches? Take secret vacations? It's not like that, Jennifer said. Then what is it like? Thomas finally spoke. We were going to pay it back, Margaret. The investments were supposed to pay off, and then we would have returned everything with interest. We were trying to help the foundation grow faster. Investments. He was calling embezzlement investments. And did these investments include the condo you bought in Miami? Detective Morrison asked, sliding another document across the table. The one registered under a shell company, but traced back to Mr. Bradley and Miss Collins? A condo in Miami. Together. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about money. This was about betrayal on every possible level. Are you two? I couldn't even finish the sentence. The silence was my answer. How long had I been the fool? How long had everyone around me known while I remained oblivious, pouring my heart into this foundation, into my marriage, into supporting my sister through her difficult time? What difficult time? Had there even been a real divorce? Or was that just another lie? Mrs. Bradley, Detective Morrison said gently, I need you to understand that you are not implicated in this investigation. Your personal accounts were not involved. The evidence clearly shows that you had no knowledge of these transactions. However, I do need to ask you some questions. I sat down heavily in one of the conference room chairs. Through the door, I could hear the party continuing. The string quartet was playing. People were laughing. The auction was probably wrapping up. All those people out there thought they were supporting a noble cause. They had no idea that their donations had been funding my husband's affair with my sister. My husband's affair with my sister. I had to say it again in my mind to make it real. When did this start? I asked them directly. Not the stealing. When did you two start this? Thomas looked at the floor. Jennifer twisted her wedding ring, the one from her marriage to Richard. Was that marriage even real, or had it been convenient cover? 7 years, Jennifer whispered. 7 years. Before I retired. Before the foundation. Before I invited her to live with us. She had been sleeping with my husband for 7 years, and I had welcomed her into my home, bought her groceries, listened to her cry about her fake divorce. Did Richard know? I asked. Richard left her because of the affair, Detective Morrison said, consulting his notes. We spoke with him during the investigation. He's willing to testify. So Richard had known. Richard had known what kind of woman my sister was, what kind of man my husband was, and he had simply divorced her and walked away. He hadn't told me. No one had told me. Did our children know? I asked Thomas. He shook his head quickly. No, absolutely not. Margaret, please, the kids don't know anything. At least there was that. At least I hadn't failed so completely as a mother that I raised children who would keep such a secret from me. Detective Morrison explained that they would both be arrested and formally charged within the week. There would be a trial. The foundation's assets would be frozen during the investigation. Everything I had built was crumbling, and all I could think about was those kids. The kids who had been accepted to college but couldn't afford to go. The kids who had worked so hard, who deserved their chance, and now wouldn't get it because the two people I trusted most in the world were thieves and liars. I need to make an announcement, I said, standing up. Mrs. Bradley, perhaps you should wait, Detective Morrison started. Those people donated money tonight based on trust. They trusted me. They deserve to know the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. But they deserve to know that there's a problem and what I'm going to do about it. I walked back into the ballroom. The quartet was still playing. Someone had just won a vacation package to Hawaii in the auction. Everyone was happy, celebrating. I walked to the microphone on the small stage. May I have your attention, please? The room gradually quieted. 300 faces turned toward me. I saw our neighbors, my former colleagues from the school district, local business owners who had supported the foundation from the beginning, parents of kids we had helped. So many good people. First, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and for your generous support. Because of you, we've raised an incredible amount for our scholarships. There was applause. I waited for it to die down. However, I need to inform you that I've just learned of serious financial irregularities within the foundation. An investigation is underway, and I have every intention of cooperating fully with authorities to ensure that every dollar is accounted for and that justice is served. The room erupted in whispers. I saw Thomas trying to slip toward the exit. 2 police officers I hadn't noticed earlier stepped in front of the doors. I know you have questions, and I promise I will answer them as soon as I am able. What I can tell you tonight is this: I did not know about these irregularities. I did not participate in them, and I will spend every remaining day I have making sure that the children we promise to help will still get their scholarships, even if I have to fund them myself. I stepped down from the stage and walked straight to Detective Morrison. I want to press charges. I want them prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and I want to testify. He nodded. We expected you would. That night, Thomas and Jennifer were both taken into custody. I went home to our empty house, the house we had bought 30 years ago when I was pregnant with our first child. I walked through rooms filled with memories that now felt like lies. Had any of it been real? Had Thomas ever loved me? Or had I just been convenient? A stable income while he built his business? A respectable wife for his respectable career? A cover story for whatever he had really been doing? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, drinking tea, and thinking about all the signs I must have missed. The late nights Thomas said he was working. The weekends he went golfing while Jennifer said she was visiting friends. The expensive gifts he gave me for birthdays and anniversaries that I now realized were probably guilt purchases. The way Jennifer always seemed to have plans when Thomas and I went out, but was somehow always home when I was working late. How could I have been so blind? My daughter Sarah called at 6 a.m. She had seen something online, some gossip about the gala. I told her everything. She cried. She was angry. She wanted to know how long I had known. I found out last night, baby. Same time as everyone else. My sons called throughout the day. Michael was furious and wanted to fly home immediately from California. Daniel, my youngest, was in shock. He kept asking if I was sure, if there wasn't some mistake. I'm sure, I told him. The detective showed me bank statements, property records, everything. Over the next few weeks, the full picture emerged through the investigation and through my own digging. Thomas and Jennifer had been lovers for 7 years, yes, but the financial theft had been going on longer. Thomas had been skimming money from his own consulting business for years, hiding it from me in accounts I never saw. When he retired, he saw the foundation as his next opportunity. He had convinced me that I needed him to handle the finances, that it would be too much stress for me to manage both the programs and the money. I had believed him because I loved him, and because, after 40 years of marriage, you want to believe your partner has your best interests at heart. Jennifer's divorce from Richard had been real, but it happened because Richard discovered the affair. She had nowhere else to go, and Thomas couldn't exactly move her into our house openly, so they concocted the story of the messy divorce and my kind-hearted offer to let her stay with us. She had been living in our guest room, eating meals at our table, borrowing my clothes, all while sleeping with my husband. The Miami condo was just the beginning. They had another property in Arizona. They had expensive art stored in a climate-controlled facility. They had jewelry in a safe deposit box. All purchased with money meant for scholarship funds. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, though that cut deep enough. The hardest part was facing the families, the parents who had trusted us, the students who had counted on us. I met with every single family personally. I apologized, even though I had done nothing wrong. I promised them I would make it right, and I meant it. I sold my car. I sold jewelry Thomas had given me over the years. I took out a loan against our house. I contacted every donor personally and explained the situation. Most of them were angry, rightfully so, but many of them donated again once they understood I was a victim too. I reached out to alumni, to local businesses, to anyone who would listen. The trial took 8 months. Thomas and Jennifer both pleaded guilty in exchange for shorter sentences. Thomas got 4 years in federal prison. Jennifer got 3. They were also ordered to pay full restitution, though the hidden assets were seized and most of the money was recovered. During the trial, more truths came out. Thomas testified that the affair started at a family reunion 7 years ago. He said it was a mistake at first, that they had both been drinking, but then it became addictive, the sneaking around, the forbidden nature of it. He said he still loved me, but that what he had with Jennifer was different, exciting. I sat in that courtroom and listened to my husband of 35 years explain how betraying me had made him feel alive. I listened to my sister cry and apologize. though her apologies always seemed to be more about her own situation than about what she had done to me. The judge asked me if I wanted to make a statement before sentencing. I did. I stood up, looked at both of them and said, "You didn't just steal money. You stole trust. You stole peace of mind. You stole from children who had nothing and needed everything. You stole from donors who believed in making the world better. You stole years from me, years I can never get back, years when I could have been building a real life instead of living in your elaborate lie. I hope you both find redemption someday. I hope you both learn what it means to give more than you take. But mostly, I hope you both understand that love isn't about what makes you feel good. It's about integrity, honor, and doing what's right even when no one is watching. You failed at all of that. After the sentencing, I filed for divorce. It was final within 3 months. I got the house, my retirement accounts, and half of Thomas's remaining assets after restitution. It wasn't much, but it was mine, earned honestly. I spent a year rebuilding the foundation with new oversight, new board members, new financial controls, rebuilding my reputation in the community, rebuilding myself. That's when I met Arthur. He was a retired accountant who had heard about what happened and volunteered to help me set up proper financial systems for the foundation. He was 70, had kind eyes, and had also gone through a painful divorce 20 years earlier. He didn't try to fix me or save me. He just showed up every Tuesday and Thursday, taught me about QuickBooks and financial statements, and occasionally made me laugh with his dry wit. One Thursday, after we finished reviewing the quarterly reports, he asked if I wanted to get dinner. Not as a date, he clarified quickly, just as two people who had worked hard and deserved a decent meal. I said yes. Over dinner, he asked me what I had learned from everything I had been through. I thought about it carefully before answering. I learned that trust has to be earned every day, not just assumed because of time or titles. I learned that I am stronger than I ever knew. I learned that when people show you who they are, believe them. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the thing that finally sets you free to become who you were always meant to be. He smiled. That's a lot of wisdom earned the hard way. Is there any other way? Not that I've found. That was 2 years ago. Arthur and I are not married. We might never be. But we see each other several times a week. We travel together occasionally. We volunteer together at the foundation, and most importantly, we respect each other's independence and integrity. He knows all my scars, and I know his, and we never pretend they don't exist. The foundation is thriving now. We've funded scholarships for 68 students in the past 3 years. Every penny is accounted for. Every transaction has dual authorization. And I make sure every scholarship recipient knows that someone believed in them enough to help them succeed. I don't talk to Jennifer anymore. She tried to reach out after she got out of prison last year, wanting to apologize again, wanting reconciliation. I told her that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I forgive her for my own peace. But I don't need her in my life. She made her choices. She can live with the consequences. Thomas sends occasional emails from prison. He'll be out next year. He wants to talk when he's released. He thinks enough time has passed. I don't respond to his emails. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. My children were devastated by their father's actions, but they've slowly come to terms with it. They visit me often. They bring my grandchildren. They tell me they're proud of how I handled everything, which means more to me than they know. Last month, one of our scholarship recipients, a young woman named Aisha who had been accepted to MIT but couldn't afford it, graduated with honors in computer engineering. She invited me to her graduation. I sat in that auditorium and watched her walk across the stage, and I thought about how close she came to not getting this opportunity. How close we all came to letting Thomas and Jennifer's betrayal destroy something important. But they didn't destroy it. They tried, but they failed, because I decided that their worst wouldn't become my worst. I decided that what they stole wouldn't define what I could build. I decided that at 62, I wasn't too old to start over, to learn hard lessons, to grow in ways I never expected. Dear listeners, have you ever wondered where the absolute limit of your patience lies? I thought I knew mine. I thought I had drawn all the boundaries I needed in life. But sometimes, life doesn't care about your boundaries. Sometimes, it kicks them down and forces you to discover strength you didn't know you possessed. I thought betrayal would break me. And maybe, for a while, it did. But breaking isn't the end of the story. Sometimes, breaking is how the light gets in. Sometimes, you have to fall apart completely before you can put yourself back together in a better shape. I'm 64 now. I have gray hair I no longer dye. I have laugh lines I've earned. I have scars, visible and invisible, that tell the story of survival. I have a foundation that helps kids build futures. I have children and grandchildren who know what real integrity looks like because they watched me rebuild mine. And I have a partner who respects me as an equal, not as someone to be managed or deceived. I wouldn't choose what happened to me. Given a chance to go back and prevent it all, I probably would. But I can't go back. None of us can. We can only decide how we move forward. And I chose to move forward with my head up, my ethics intact, and my heart open to new possibilities. Because in the end, that Saturday evening in April didn't just reveal who Thomas and Jennifer really were, it revealed who I really am. And between the two revelations, I much prefer the second one.